everyone. Well, it's a new day. We got some rain yesterday, so we're still playing in the mud, but it is what it is. But today my plan is I want to get this slab ready for concrete. So my goal is to have vapor barrier down in here today and have it ready to lay the steel in it. But if you've watched any of the previous videos, you know we put a dust system line in. We put our plumbing, our drain lines, we got them roughed in. I've got to get my water line stubbed up over here in the wall. I'm gonna put some conduit and run it up in it. But this stuff, I backfilled it with a number 10 stone. So I call it a chat, but it packs in really well. So it's laid for a few days. So I've let it settle. I'm gonna run this plate compactor that I rented over it. So I'm gonna get in here, slick it up. We'll get the edges buttoned up with our batter board around it. And then we'll get the vapor barrier down, hopefully. But I will tell you one thing's changed around here since the last time I seen you. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're moving up in the world. We finally got some juice up here plugged up, so we don't have to worry about using the generator anymore. But I'll take you outside here and show you what they set up for us. They come up and set our transformer pad, and I've got to get in there and backfill around that. The only other connections we've got is the internet. They've run fiber out here, so I'll have to get them come, and I've got a little pull box or junction box there that they'll take internet into the building. So glad to have that done. We got to get backfilled around that and get that prettied up, but we're getting ready to sow some grass. So let's get to it. Try to slick the floor up in here and get ready to pour some concrete maybe here in the next week or so. Concrete guy said if it rained next week, he'd try to work me in since we're in the dry, and he could come in here and work in the rain. So that's the project at hand. Good old Honda. All right, I'm gonna let it warm up, and then I'm gonna run over these ditches and see if we can get them to settle down anymore, and then we'll bring the tractor, bring some more stone in here and level everything up. I'll tell you, if you've not used this little chat material to backfill ditches before, I'd recommend it. I've only basically shoveled this in here in these ditches, and around here I tamped some of this in, but I basically walked it in with my feet. But I ran that plate compactor over it, as you watched, and in certain areas I actually just let it sit and kind of held it back to where it just sit and vibrate. I mean, you can feel it in your feet moving the material, but you can see what kind of compaction I had by basically just walking it in and letting it settle for a few days. But that's hard as a rock, and so I'm not worried about that going down when I get my concrete on it. So I'm going to go ahead and stub my water line in over here, get it up in that wall cavity. I'm going to put it in conduit. Once I get that done, I'm going to have to backfill around that. I'm going to clean the crumbs up. Some areas that stuff's just rougher. I don't want that underneath my vapor barrier, but I'll take the transit, shoot all my low spots. I'll sort of mark it with some paint on the floor. We'll get this thing leveled off, and then we'll have the floor ready. And then we'll move to the edges, button it up, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. what I've got here, obviously my water line's coming through. I've teed off here, which will go in and feed this building. I'm gonna 90 it up in this conduit, take it up. I'll have a loft upstairs and I'll tie it into a water heater. We'll reduce it down up there, put a pressure reducer on it, and we'll fix that inside. But my water line, as you can see with this ditch, will continue on out and then cut across the front of the building. And where my septic tank, my drain line for just my liquids going to my field lines, I've got to cross the road. So what I'm gonna do is bring my water line across in that ditch. That way I don't have two ditches going across my driveway. So water will feed in, I'll have to split over there and take it to the house, but it'll come in here, come in this line, feed this building, and then I've teed here and I've run this line on up to the top of the hill behind the building. That way if I ever fence that off, need to water a cow, whatever it may be, I'll have water up there. And then too, if you can notice, I've got a piece of 3/4 inch conduit down in the ditch as well. And I'll bring it over here and bring it in, plumb it into my panel box. That way if I ever need power up on the hill, I can fish a wire through there. I just want to go ahead and get this in the ground. Before I sewed my bank out there, I would have conduit and I could pull it through there and I won't have to go back and tear my bank up if I needed to dig something up there or have to dig this out again. So that's sort of the thought pattern for the future. So I've got 300 more foot of water line. I will tie in here. I'll slick this up. I'm going to use some of that number 10 stone. As you can see, all these slate in here. I'll put some of that down and then I'll cover it up with that stone, and then I'll use some of this for backfill, but I'll end up having to haul probably a lot of this out of here. So I just don't want them jagged rock down there on top of my water line. So I'm going to slide my conduit over, get this thing centered up, pull it over here. We'll tie that other water line in, and then we'll get our conduit tied in on this side, 90 it up, and we'll just stub it out over there. But before I do anything, I'm using these compression clips on these water lines, and I don't think they're rated to be underground. I've talked to 2 or 3 plumbers, and they said they've been using them underground for years. So I'm going to use this shark bite underground wrap, and I'm going to cover these connections, and so I think I'll be in good shape with that. But with videoing everything, I've pretty well got a diagram of where everything's at. So if I did have a problem, this is in conduit that I could get it in and out, and I'll know where this is at. But let's get the conduit in, get it stubbed out, and move on to something else. have got my water line tied in, and I've got it rolled up here so I can roll it back and then take off around the building. So I'm gonna go ahead and backfill this to about right here. But I laid a bed of this stone down in the bottom because it was so jagged with all this slate. Got it tied on and then went ahead and covered it up with some of that stone so I can backfill with some of this rock. No needing out here, it's just gonna be gravel, so no needing worrying about compaction all that much. So I'll backfill it with this stuff, but now I've got a little cushion over my water line. All right, here is my conduit. I went ahead and stubbed it out and got a long sweep 90 turned up under the wall. That'll tie into the panel, but I raised the elevation, sort of packed it up so I didn't have to take that trench so deep. So I've got that packed in and ready to go, but this will run up to the top of the hill in case I ever need electric up there. So got the water line tied in. I'm not going to cover this up. I've just got it supported. I'm going to go ahead and backfill back here, and I'll probably throw a little backfill on this, but I'm going to leave this open until I can get the water turned on and check that. So I'm going to move this tractor out of the way, backfill this, backfill that, and the only other thing I've got to do in here, I'm thinking, is I think I'm going to run one more piece of conduit down and run it out and run it over here and stub it up on the interior of this wall, because I will put outlets in between each bay or at each post. So I'll probably run a couple outlets around the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and run me a piece of conduit over there and stub it up, and that way I'll have it there and won't have to try to fish back through. Once I've spray foamed the inside, I won't have to be drilling through that. So I'll have a piece of conduit over there so I can tie off all my circuits on the outside. So let's cover a ditch up.